Alright, MacBook versus. Which is better, the 14-inch M2 MacBook Pro or the 16? Well, let's talk about it. To start, both MacBook Pro models are fairly similar. Despite having different prices, they share the same chassis design and focus on raw performance, with the sizes and features impacted by said sizes being the main differentiating factors. For context, here are the raw stats of both devices. As you can tell, these MacBook Pros only have a few differences in terms of specs, but in the real world, it's a little different. Like I said, the majority of the differences lie heavily on the sizes of the laptops, 14 versus 16 inches, which really doesn't seem like a lot, but when you use these laptops, those size differences can be pretty significant. Remember, most things on computer displays are typically pretty small and don't take up too much space in particular, so having a couple extra inches of screen can actually be pretty significant, and can contribute to probably more work being done on the laptop. However, a larger screen also means a larger size, so it's a give and take. So let's break this down, the pros and cons of each device. Well, as already stated, the MacBook Pro 16-inch model is 2 inches larger than the 14-incher, which is great, but it does come at a cost of $500 extra, which is not an insignificant amount of money for most consumers out there, so it is pretty expensive, so let's see if it's worth it. Now, the best part about this display is the larger screen real estate, something we've already discussed. You can do more work on it and multitask much easier. But another thing that comes with the larger screen is a larger chassis, which can be a good or bad thing depending on the user. So first, let's talk about the good. With the larger chassis, you get louder speakers. The grills are bigger and the speakers are fuller sounding in general, so that's great. And also, you get a far better battery life on the 16-incher because of that larger size. 22 hours compared to 18, which for those who do a lot of work, that's a very significant amount, and might make a big difference day to day if you work with really intense programs. However, that does of course come at a cost. Not just the literal price, but also the weight and size of the laptop. The 16-inch version is big, and for some people, might not even fit in your book bag. But with it being just over a pound heavier than the 14-incher, the 16-inch MacBook Pro can be a bit more difficult to travel with over an extended period of time for some people. Yeah, it's only a pound, but that can be a pretty significant difference if you walk around a lot, so keep that one in mind. Now, in terms of the performance, the 16-incher does come with a bit better of an M2 Pro chip, with a higher core count for the CPU and GPU, resulting in some slightly better performance for the starter model. Here are the benchmarks. And this slightly better performance difference carries on to the higher tiers as well. Moreover, the 16-inch model does come with a larger charger as well for faster charging. So that kind of rounds out the pros and cons, so now let's move on to the next section, my recommendation. Right, so the M2 MacBook Pro 14 and 16-inch versions are fairly similar. Besides some small things, most of the comparison was based on the size differences and their impact on the laptop experience, leading to, for instance, better or worse battery lives, different weights, and more screen real estate. But for other things, such as how the screens actually look, the port selections, and the keyboards, things don't really differ that much. So then for you, which is best? Is it the more expensive 16-incher with a larger screen and extra features? Or the more modest 14-inch one that still packs a punch? Well, that depends on firstly your needs and then personal preferences. But to give a definitive answer, here's what I think. If you're a student or someone who will be traveling a lot, would rather save the money, and prefers a smaller screen, that's probably the first or second most important criterion on there, really. You should get the 14-inch M2 MacBook Pro. It's cheaper, it's more portable, and will cover everything you need. However, if you're a creative or someone who will be relatively stationary while working, can afford the extra cost, and prefers a larger screen, you should get the 16-inch M2 MacBook Pro. This is probably best for people who don't travel too often and who can use the extra screen real estate. Plus, those who can afford it. Now, these are pretty general recommendations, and there can be overlaps in each category, of course, but that should give you a basic idea of what demographic each size is tailored toward. But if you have a preference for one side in particular, I'd say go for that, as long as it fits with your needs. Remember, try to focus on your needs with these tech purchases, because at the end of the day, they're still tools for work. Really cool tools, but still tools. So try not to get too distracted from what really matters. And that was my comparison of the 14 and 16-inch M2 MacBook Pros. I hope this video helped, and I hope to see you again soon. My name is Sears. It's spelled like Cyrus, pronounced like Sea Rooster, just take out the ter. Thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Peace.